I always find it really weird when like straight guys get on stage and have like abortion jokes. Like I'm like, what would you know about that? What, you know what I mean? That would be like me being like, the other day I woke up and had morning wood. Like guys would be like, what? Like nobody, like I can't,
Hey, welcome to the Gifted Conversations, where I'm talking to people who are sharing their gift with those around them and the world at large. My guest today is Brittany Brave. She's an actress, host, and comedian. We talked about being one with the bomb, men trimming their fingernails, authenticity in comedy, bridging the gap from on and off stage, and so much more. Coming up, Comedy 101 with Brittany Brave. Brittany Brave in the house. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm happy to be able to get a chance to chat with you. I've been lazy and haven't like made it out to a show yet, but I've been following you, and I love what you're up to. So
Thank you. I personally I love feeling stalked. So whenever people say they've been following me, it's my kink. So
perfect.
thank you. And actually, you haven't been out to a show, but we were just chatting that you have seen some comedy in the park. So I said that if you see like a tiny, angry young woman yelling into park crowds, there's a good chance you have been to a show, and you just were too scared to approach me, and that's okay.
I think I'm gonna be there again next week or in the near future. So next time I'll be sure to say hello.
Yeah, we should get a nice mating call or something. Like maybe you yell Pinot and then I yell Grigio or something, and then it's like that's her. There she is.
Done. Yeah, I'm a fan of wine. I can do that.
That's just my general mating call. Is a nice white wine that'll get me going.
Perfect. Got it. I got a couple. I got a couple on the shelf as well. So perfect. We'll get along.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Well, just to kind of start things off, so I feel like you kind of have a lot going on, but I'm just going to start with you being a comedian. So you're a comedian. I'm just wondering, can you just kind of tell me how you got started in comedy and just how you kind of gravitated towards that?
Yeah. A couple years ago, I got really, really depressed and gave up on all humanity. You throw in a bad breakup and one or two abortions, and I said, you know what? The way out of this is stand up. No, just kidding.
Brilliant.
Part of that's very true, but we'll unpack all of that. No, I've been I'm doing comedy full time now. Very fortunate to be able to, I don't know if I'm making a living now in the middle of a pandemic, but to be able to do and pursue my dream. But I really started doing comedy. I've been like performing for the better part of my life. Whether people wanted me to or not, I think that's the definition of a ham, someone who seeks performative attention, whether or not people ask for it. So that's me. But no, I've been on stage for the better part of my life, whether it's like acting, improv, sketch, dancing, so on and so forth. And then 2 years ago, I was like, yeah, let's do this. I hit rock bottom and I climbed all the way up to stand up. So rock bottom.
Here we are.
Rock bottom to stand up. That's it. There it is. We found it. That's it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm cheering you on, and I don't know what rock bottom necessarily looked like, but stand up looks good on you. So keep it up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course. And this is kind of there's going to be a couple of questions that are going to be a bit douchey on my end, but just out of curiosity, what's like the most obnoxious response when you tell people that you're a comedian?
First off, I like that you said that there's going to be douchey questions on your end. And as a straight woman who's gone on dates from dating apps, I'm very used to it. And this is not a douchey question. So I just want to put that out there. But that's a good question that leads to, I have a response that's usually douchey. The most annoying response when I tell people that I am a comedian is definitely the tell me a joke that I get. It's really annoying. I feel like nobody else really gets that in any other craft or industry. Nobody's like, I'm a trained neurologist, and then someone's like, cool, give me a lobotomy. Like it doesn't work. but yeah, they usually say to tell me a joke, and then there's a nice awkward 5 to 7 minute period where I'm like, no, and they're like, but come on, and I'm like, but it's not the same, and they're like, just one, and then I say fuck you, and that's the end of that. Can I curse on this? I guess too late.
I encourage it. Yeah, I'll be cursing with you as well.
Oh, great. Well then, fuck it. Let's let it rip. Yeah, that's
Let's let it rip.
that's probably it. I also get an annoying response again, exclusively on dates with dudes, that I say that I am a comedian, and then usually some guy named Chad or Brad or something likable to that says, "Stand up? Cool. I tried that once. Went pretty well." And I've tried a lot of things once, but I'm not making a career out of them. So yeah, those are the two most obnoxious responses for sure.
Awesome. I figured one was going to be the tell me a joke thing, but I like that little Brad Chad anecdote. That's brilliant.
Yeah, the tale of Brad and Chad, Brittany Brave's love life, the last 3.5 years. Yeah.
Nice. A little bit later, I'm totally going to ask you something about your love life, but we'll
Let's
let the suspense build a little bit.
let's get into it. Okay. I'm burning 2020, I'm burning bridges, baby. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So just to kind of like before we get to that little portion, I read somewhere that
That would be a big portion. Sorry, no.
what's that?
Like, that would be I said that'll be a big portion.
Perfect. Yeah. I look forward to that. I read somewhere that your dad said that you're his favorite son, and I'm sorry to laugh at your expense. I think that's brilliant though.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, are your parents supportive, and do they kind of like have a good sense of humor? Do they think you're funny?
Yeah, thank you. My dad did. That's a true story. I just want to address that really quickly. My dad did turn to me one day when I was drinking whiskey and watching football with him, and he said, "You're the best son I've ever had." And I feel like as an only child, that's how I'm doing it. I'm just trying to be the best daughter my mom can have and the best son that my mom can have. So I go shopping with my mom, and then I come home and I yell at the TV at football with my dad just to make both of them happy.
Balance.
Yeah, no, they're good. They're good kids, Karen and Tony. My parents are the best. I'm an only child. I'm super, super close to both of them. Yeah, they're wild. They're a huge source of so much of my material. They are both collectively the reason that I became a comedian. They are the sources of my sense of humor. I am 50% Karen, 50% Tony, to be 100% this disaster. And no, they're great. I couldn't ask for a better support system in that sense. They're gung-ho about comedy, and as long as I still have a roof over my head and I can feed myself, then they're all for me going for that artistic dream. So yeah.
Cool. That's awesome to hear. That's I like how you put that, and I like that I'm trying to do a little bit of homework on you. I guess maybe that's also kind of stalking, but I like that
you're hitting all my sweet spots. Yes, I love men who do research on me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like that. You and your dad share some Ozzy Osbourne love for his music, or Sabbath. So I'm with you on that.
Fuck yes. Yeah, I love
that. And not to dwell on this, I know it's been a shitty year, and it seemed like you were going to kind of have like a big year. You're making all your money doing comedy and whatnot. So, I know it's kind of shitty all around, but is there something that's good that kind of came out of this, or what's like one way that you've kind of adapted during this time?
Yeah, for sure. There's been a ton of good. I mean, we definitely are still grappling with some of those frustrations, as like virtual and outdoor comedy isn't ideal, but it's better than nothing. But I do think that this period, as a human being and as an artist, that opportunity to kind of slow down and be free of distractions and be free of your usual hustle and bustle has really kind of helped realign and recenter, at least me personally. Not having stage time and not being able to kind of like get caught up in that stand-up grind has allowed me to just kind of take a step back and rewrite some jokes, rebrand, relax, recalibrate, rekindle, redo, rejuvenate, all of those things. But no, yeah, it has been really good. And I think as a comedian too, our tool belts have tripled, because now we can tell jokes on Zoom or in big parks, and it's a weird skill to have, but I know it's going to make us all stronger in the long run. So
yeah, I've definitely had a lot more screen time throughout this entire thing, and I didn't think it was gonna be a useful skill or this and that, but yeah, it's proven to definitely be kind of valid and important right now. So, and I hear you, and I
Mhm.
haven't seen any of your like virtual acts or anything like that, but that's cool. I guess it's not ideal, but we do what we can.
We do what we can. Yeah, when it's all that you have, you're going to make the most of it. And yeah, I mean, it's the wave of the future, and we don't know when this is going to end. And all of these industries are constantly changing. So, I mean, if you look at it on a flip side, it is kind of cool now that like virtual comedy can be this new mainstay for us, and that you can be on shows with people in New York and South Africa and London and from all over the place. And like, it's an opportunity to grow your fan base too. So, like, quarantine was definitely good for that, just an internet presence.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that as well. Like while it is shitty, there's definitely some kind of opportunities to leverage, and the fact that yeah, you can be in the city or here or there and connect with people in whatever continent. Yeah, that's a huge opportunity, and maybe make some money or just expand the fan base. So
Yeah,
good for you to leverage that.
thank you.
So speaking of, let's see how this transition goes. Speaking of being in other places, that's not just New York and doing comedy. You're from Florida. Were you born and raised there?
I am I am unfortunately from Florida. I was born up here in New Jersey. Well, I'm in New York right now, which is funny because New Yorkers would be like, "Stop calling us New Jersey," and New Jersey would be like, "We ain't New York." But no, I was born in New Jersey. Physically, right now, I'm currently in New York, but I did grow up in Miami, Florida. So whatever stereotypes you think that comes with, it's 100% true.
I, I was just kind of curious how Florida how it shaped you growing up. I don't know a whole lot of stereotypes, but
It's shaped me in the ways that I mean, if there's anything weird and unusual about me, it's nature versus nurture right there at play. It's just my surroundings having an overwhelming impact on me. But yeah, I mean, on a more serious note, I never really felt at home at Florida. Like my heart was always in New York and my heart was always in New Jersey, where the majority of my family was, and I was like in love with New York since I was a baby. So I never fully connected to Miami, and I never really fully connected to Florida. And I think that was kind of like lighting a fire under my ass to go when I had the chance to start my own life and start my own career, to go do it where I wanted to do it. And on a personal level, as a human being with a personality and character, I think it's good I never fully connected to Florida, because God knows what you'd see me in the news for that my mother would not be happy about. So yeah.
brilliant. um, and yeah, so how long have you kind of been in New York now?
7 years. I just celebrated 7 years last month.
Nice. Congrats. I'm just coming up on next week is 6, so close.
Nice. Nice. I went by the book. I celebrated by tradition. I looked it up, and for 7 years, an anniversary, you are supposed to move back in with your parents due to a global pandemic and the complete collapse of your industry. So I'm right on track.
Right on.
I'm right on. That's what everyone's 7th year in New York is. So get ready for next year. You'll be moving back in with your family. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Can't wait. That's like
Yeah.
I was upstate for like 2 weeks. That was a challenge. It was fine in certain ways, but other ways I was like, I'll just be homeless down here. I can't
Can't
do
even
it.
handle it. I know I'm the anomaly. Like I said, I'm weirdly close to my parents, and I really love being home. I feel like everyone's normal, doable, manageable amount of time home is like 2 weeks to maybe 6 weeks. But like when you grow up like an only child, you're just like, I was home for 5 months. I love my mom and dad. Like, we're the three best friends anyone can have, and everyone's like, you're weird. Like, why don't you want to come back? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I not necessarily. I have an older sister, so I don't have the three amigo kind of three musketeer thing with my family. But
It's okay. You're lucky.
we're doing all right. We're getting there. It's being repaired and all that stuff. So
Yeah, there's always a little bit of repairing. Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I think you're lucky in that sense too, because I constantly feel like I'm third wheeling for my parents, whether I want to or not. It's not a fun feeling. Yeah.
yeah. Now that you say that, I can imagine. But so you've been in New York for 7 years, and in that time, I saw that you've done some improv at places, famous places like the Improv and UCB, and I'm just wondering, like, having done some improv at places like that, how has that kind of helped your stage confidence and just kind of helped your craft in general?
Yeah, improv is at the core of me as a comedian and me as a performer. With comedy specifically, that is the comedy bug that bit me, if you will. I mean, I was really fortunate to always have drama teachers and acting teachers in middle school that embraced improv and embraced comedy and not just dramatic acting. So the first time I think I ever really realized that I could like make someone that wasn't family or friends laugh, make an audience laugh, was through improv games. So it's how I found my comedic voice. It's what I credit to being a good comedic performer. And yeah, it definitely now is, as being a professional performer and comedian, improv is like your best friend. During on stage, during interviews, during auditions, like being able to like work that muscle and have that to fall back on is like invaluable.
Yeah, I've never taken any improv classes, but I've probably out of fear. But I love improv so much. I have such a respect for the people that do that, and just that kind of talent and craft in general to be able to think on your toes like that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, with thanks. Thanks. It's a fun art. It's a fun art. We're usually that's nice that you would look up to it that way because a lot of people it's so funny there's so much like competition between stand up and improv and I sit up on both sides of it. Like I'm an improviser and a stand up comic. So whenever people are like, yay, improv, I'm like, oh, yay, great. Cause I just hang out with mostly stand ups now who are like, fuck improv. It's not real. That's not funny. I'm like, yes, it is. It's a very elevated art form. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see the kind of the friction in between those two kind of. I still think they're both art forms, but yeah, I could see the little friction there for sure.
It's really the difference between like who was loved more growing up as a kid. Like stand-ups weren't and improvs were loved too much. Like improvisers are like they could deserve to do an open mic or two to toughen up. And then like stand-up comics, it's like if you can't afford therapy, go take an improv class. Like just like find love and support in your heart. Okay. Yeah.
It's so good. And so having to kind of having like a foundational knowledge in just being on your toes and whatnot, do you feel, and just kind of again from my stalking and seeing some of the videos and stuff, it seems like you're like fully confident on stage. Or how do you feel when you're up there? Do you feel confident?
Not all the time. No. I mean, definitely it wavers. I think confidence is a huge part of the battle. And I think that especially as a comic, developing your act and getting used to performing stand up, more than half of the battle is just making sure that the natural nature of stand up and the art doesn't rattle you. Right? Like just knowing things don't always land, things aren't always going to go your way, prepare for the unexpected, expect the unexpected. So that confidence and that security it does go a long way and it'll help you like really carry your own as a comedian and a performer. If any kind of confidence that you see, thank you for saying that. I mean, I attribute it to like spending the better part of my life in front of crowds, whether it was, in malls and or dance recitals or funerals when I was always like the kid in my family. My mom was like, Britt's gonna read at grandma's funeral. And I was like, I'm 4. Like, so like I'm very comfortable in large groups of people, but yeah, you have your off nights too, and it's just about battling that like inner demon and being like, no, you've got this. Hold your own. Stay focused. Yeah.
I wish I could see you doing stand up in a mall. I have my mic off when I'm laughing just so I don't completely derail this interview, but just that image is amazing in my head.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I performed as like a child actor in a mall, and then I've definitely done stand up in a mall in New Jersey, and I would go back to doing it as a child actor in no time. People were much nicer when I was 4 years old performing in a mall. Now at 29, they're like, get a job. So what are you doing? Wear a mask, get out of here, get a job.
It's so good. So you're talking a little bit about yeah, like you were saying, how kind of expect the unexpected. Not everything will land all the time, and sometimes you'll get rattled. I've always been fascinated about this with comedians, and again, not to be negative, but I just am fascinated how people deal with bombing. Like, what goes through your head? How do you handle bombing? And then how do you kind of get that mental fortitude to next time be like, hey, this next show, you got this. I can do this.
Yeah. Again, like the confidence thing, it's like a night to night thing. and it depends on the size of the bomb. It depends on the nature of the bomb. Is it just that your shit isn't landing that well, or is it that a grown woman yelled from the back of the room, shut up, like in the middle of it? That's a true story.
I was going to say it's so specific. That's got to be true.
It's gotta be true. And if you could believe it, that wasn't at the mall. That was in a comedy club, if you could believe it. Yeah, I think as a comic, you start to accept that bombing is a part of the process. Like whether you're just starting out or whether you're 10 to 15 years in, the bombs obviously look different. Like just starting out, it's going to be a little rougher around the edges, a little bit more painful. A bomb when you're 10 to 15 years in looks different and probably might not even be a bomb to the naked eye, but to you as a comic, like you didn't do as well as you could. And you just start to get like so obsessed with the craft and with your jokes and with getting better and growing as a comedian that you do weirdly start to embrace the bomb and be one with the bomb, because it's like once you know it's going to happen, it's just all a part of it. It's a numbers game. For every bomb you have, you'll have a good set, and vice versa. It ebbs and it flows. You do start to love it because you're like, okay, well, it's weirdly like one step closer to the final product. It's like a scientist who like has a batch of a vaccine and it doesn't work, and it's like frustrating, but they're like, well, now we know what not to do. That's a topical joke because we're in the middle of a pandemic and still don't have a vaccine, just in case anybody at home is confused. That's a Corona joke, technically.
Nice.
Yeah. I did you topical humor. I'm good for that. Yeah. So it still rattles you, and some nights it's easier to get back up with that same confidence than others. But I think if you're putting the work in and you're really confident that comedy is what it is you want to do and know that you're meant to do, like anything else, like you're not going to let a bad day derail you. You're just going to get back up and like try to see things for the bigger picture.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think my new life motto is be one with the bomb. I think that's brilliant.
Be one with the bomb. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a job interview last week, which I had no reason to be there for. And that was like by far the worst I've ever bombed on anything in my life.
Yeah, that's bombing too. It's all, it's all, it's anytime you flail or you're not at your best or something doesn't work or something goes unplanned, that's arguably a bomb. Yeah.
I think they might actually schedule a second round interview with me just for comedic humor for the day. So like, hey, dude, that kid was so bad. Let's get a laugh in today.
Bring him back. Yeah.
If
that's the case, when you're there, you might as well try out some jokes. Like if you've ever written anything, like I would just embrace it like an open mic at that point.
Yeah, I think I didn't have my mic off and I started swearing, and then it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. This isn't working.
Right. Exactly. If they keep bringing you back just for comedic humor, listen, you better start being like, now you have to pay me because technically you're bringing me back here to make you laugh, so I'm owed compensation. Just saying, you have to give me the job.
Yeah, there's value in that. I'm entertainment, so. You were talking about that woman that kind of heckled you in like a live scenario at one of your shows. So I was just on top of bombing. I'm just wondering, like, how do you deal with hecklers, since that's like the one kind of form of art, like even as a musician, no one's ever going to like really be a dick to you when you're on stage. They're not going to like throw tomatoes or like say boo for the most part. But comedy feels like the one thing where you're just going to deal with it.
It's a freaking free for all. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you kind of deal with hecklers?
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up. I mean, I used to work in the music business. I'm not personally a musician. And I compare the two all the time. Yeah. You never go to the opera and have somebody like, fuck you in the back of the room. Like there's already like a baseline respect that like, they're like, oh, they're playing an instrument. I can't do that. Yeah. That's a great point. I don't know. I mean, I think it has to be addressed. And as a comedian, you need to be honest with whatever it is that's going on. And like, yeah, like, so it's always about reading the room. So if they're distracting from your set, then at that point you need to give them attention. But I think you just learn to try to like turn it into an opportunity for more humor. That is what makes stand-up so great and why it's an art form that's best served live and it's so volatile, and that's why people love to go see it, just watch what happens next. So you just start to like if you feel like as if it's something you need to address, I think you start to look at it as less of like a shutting a heckler down and more as like, oh, well, this is the direction my show's taking. So might as well make the most of it and like, and own it. But of course, if they get out of hand, then yeah, kick their asses out. Come on.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's there to kind of have some fun. So it's one thing to maybe give a little bit of a like give a little shit here and there to the comedian to kind of
Yeah.
create some excitement. But there's to me at least, there's a point where it's like, all right, like you're crossing the line. Like, can I get my act done and stuff like that? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes people heckle and they mean well. Like I've had positive hecklers too. Like they don't realize that they're like interrupting you and distracting the audience, but they're just like, yes, queen. Like it's like usually like drunk white girls that like love me and they're like, she's so funny. Mary, isn't she funny? And you're just like, shut up. But they mean well. They just were raised in a barn, I guess. It's fine. It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe creates a little excitement as well on top of the show. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I imagine that's like where some of the kind of improv comes in to like get a good like kind of tag or one line, just whatever, however, to be creative and whatnot. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's also a fear of mine. Like I'm too polite and nice, but
No, you gotta start going for the jugular. You don't have a choice. Yeah, as a comedian. Yeah.
yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, maybe I'll have to take some improv classes at some point or do a stand-up set just to kind of get that experience in.
Do it for sure.
And you were also, I forget where it was, but at some point, or maybe you still are, you're doing some teaching. You've got like 15 plus years of kind of like comedy improv experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are you teaching?
Yeah, so I actually teach improv specifically. I do intro courses at the Brooklyn Brainery in both of their locations in Park Slope and I should know this. Crown Heights, that feels right. Anyways, Brooklyn's one big blur to me. It's Queens to Manhattan, Manhattan to Queens. I got, but yeah. And then after doing that, I started slowly but surely getting into like corporate improv, and that was part of like my gig as a comedian. I was either doing comedy or teaching comedy, and then I developed my own 6-week program too for short form and long form improv and comedic acting that obviously now has a pin in it because of everything. But I have been able to kind of transfer that over and teach at least like the psychology of comedy virtually, which has been cool.
What don't you do? That's incredible. In just a moment, I'm gonna.
I'm a bad swimmer.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm a bad swimmer.
Ah,
I'm really bad at swimming. I can't budget to save my life. There's a lot of things I'm very terrible at. Don't make me go into the full list.
I would never
So,
do such a thing. I learned how to dive in like 22. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and this kind of along the lines of a bit of being a bit of a douchey question, the part two version of this. But what do you tell aspiring students that want to do comedy or improv? And then douchey portion, what's comedy 101 or improv 101?
Yeah. I tell anybody who aspires to do comedy or improv, don't. Um, and like, look at me. It's like dare in school, like when they would be like, look at me, I'm a recovering at, and it's like, don't be like me. I'm like, look at me, I'm the bad apple, I'm the bad example. No, I tell them to stick with it. That if they think something is funny, it probably is. And then the art of comedy or becoming a comedian or improviser is just figuring out how to convey that to an audience. That's half the battle. It's like communicating and understanding it and making it digestible and entertaining. And then, yeah, comedy 101, comedy is like the truest art form. Like an across the board, like improv, sketch, and stand up, it's all rooted in like authenticity and truth. Like if you're a stand up, the reason why it hits is because it's a universal truth. There's something about it that resonates with people. But also, like, if you're telling material on stage that isn't true or isn't true to you, that's the quickest thing an audience can sniff out. Right. And then, like, as an improviser, I would always tell my students to, like, you have to play truthfully and react truthfully. And that manifests itself as, like, don't plan as an improviser. A lot of novice improvisers think that, like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to say and I'm going to just try to force this scene to be one way. And I'm like, it's never going to work. You're cheating the comedy gods by doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that the audience can be unintentionally ruthless in that they just know when you're kind of faking it.
Yeah. Yeah, they totally do. It's why sketches don't land too. Like if you take a comedic premise and you exaggerate it to the point where nobody can even relate to it anymore, then like that's really what it is. Comedy at the heart of comedy is like just getting real and keeping it honest. Yeah.
Yeah. So along those lines, as far as like kind of your own personal comedy and some of like your socials and whatnot, you're covering your dating life, the female body, periods. Is there anything that's off limits to you, or is everything just every kind of life experience just an opportunity for material?
Yeah. I think the things that are off limits to me are experiences or things that aren't true to me. So I guess it kind of goes back to comedy being truthful. I personally am a very like autobiographical comic. I mean, I know comedy is drawn to some extent from all of our own experiences and observations, of course. But I'm less of an observational comic and more of an autobiographical comic in the sense that, like, if I've gone through it, then that's what I'm naturally compelled to create material around. Like, it would be very hard for me to write a joke about, like, I'm Italian, like, and I would never write a joke about being Chinese because I'm not. So I wouldn't understand what that's like to be Chinese. Also, that'd probably be very racist, and I would not do that. Like so it's like I try to it's all born from like I feel like if you've gone through that experience or that is at your core of your identity and who you are, then like it's fully within your realm to make a joke about that and to produce material about it. I think things get offensive and people get canceled, for lack of a better term, when I think that's when you disconnect from an audience, when people are like, you don't know what you're talking about, or that's just hate speech, or that's like, why are you talking? Like, I always find it really weird when like straight guys get on stage and have like abortion jokes. Like, I'm like, what would you know about that? What, you know what I mean? That would be like me being like, the other day I woke up and had morning wood. Like, guys would be like, what? Like, nobody, like, I can't, if you went, obviously there's truths to it, or like you can experience it in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, if it's something that impacts me or causes some sort of reaction or happens to me, then like that's usually what I'll pull material from. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Although if you did a morning wood
Mhm.
joke, I think that would be great. But
Yeah, maybe we'll write one today just for shits and giggles. Why not?
um, I think you kind of mentioned this before, but you're a woman in the comedy world, which can sometimes feel like a bit of a boys' club. How have you kind of navigated that world?
Mhm. Um, it's tough. I think that women do have to be tougher than and a little bit more on guard than their male counterparts. The industry is really being ruled by women right now. I mean, women are at the top of their game in comedy, but you're always going to have that fraction of the industry, of any industry, that's still somehow stuck in like the 1930s and does not have the most like I don't even know if we can call it progressive anymore. Like if people if people are like, women can do comedy, like I'm progressive. I'm like, no, you're still kind of behind if you're even thinking that just saying that is like a revolutionary thing. So I do think that and it's the same way in corporate too. Like I think men are kind of taught to like take no shit, and then that just gets perceived as them being assertive or getting the job done or leading. And I think when women try to approach it as like I'm not going to take shit or I'm going to say what's on my mind, it gets turned into bitchy or aggressive or some negative connotation. So I think like in some ways you take the gender out of it and you're just like, I'm just going to be good to people and be funny, and when I think that something is wrong, I'm going to speak up about it. I'm going to fight for what's right, and that shouldn't make me any different than my male counterparts, because if they're doing the same thing, then it's all fair. It's all on the table. So, but I do think, yeah, we have our guards up a little bit more as female comedians, because there is shit that we go through that like male comedians, I don't know how many male comedians are like offered stage time under the premise of, can you give me a hand job? Like, I'm sure it has happened in the history of history, but I don't think it's as often as us. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, the HJ offer. Yeah, I mean, well, good for you
yeah,
to
playing the classic HJ offer. Yeah, we love
well, good for you to be standing up, doing your thing, and just giving women a voice and empowering them. I'm paying attention to a couple of female comedians in the kind of Hollywood circuit, whatever, like the whatever scene, however you call that scene. But yeah, it's cool to see them like having their own podcast, their shows, and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it's not ideal just yet, but we're getting there little by little, day by
we
day.
We are, yeah. And it's the kind of thing that I think you handle, but you don't necessarily need to label anymore. Like I think as a woman, you spend your entire life pretty astutely aware that like you will be treated differently sometimes and you are at a disadvantage in some ways, and that there are some glaring fair and unfair differences between you and your male counterparts. But I think part of it is like what really is going to break the stigma long term is not necessarily feeling the need to label and differentiate that. Like, I'm a female comedian. No, you're just a comedian. Like, men aren't like, I'm a male doctor. Like, it's, they just introduce themselves as is. So I think that's a big part of it too. Like, take the gender out of the equation and just be good at what you do. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, that sounds like that's important too, where it's like you said, I'm not a female comedian, I'm just a comedian. And
yeah.
same thing with the doctor thing. So let's hope that I hope that that happened much sooner than later or happened yesterday,
Little by little, little by little.
Yeah, little by little. So you mentioned that you have like that 6 week course that you kind of started for like corporate people to if they want to get into comedy.
Mm-hmm.
You started this thing called Rock Candy, which is the
Mm-hmm.
only stand-up show at Rockwood Music Hall, if that's correct.
Yep.
You got some time. I can't speak today. You got some love from the New York Times. Congrats, that's awesome.
Thank you.
You've got that platform that's called We Are a Cat Call, which sounds like it's used to kind of inspire and empower females.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that
Yeah, it's a network, it's a community for women. It started when I was in the music business. But like our two focuses now are all female events. Men and however you identify, you're welcome to attend, but like the spotlight is always on female talent, whether it's like female chefs, female comedians, female musicians. Just trying to raise the female voice through that. And I am in the process of, there's been a lot of like content creation around women's issues and women throughout the years with Catcall. And now I'm in the process of like packaging that as a podcast and starting it as a podcast. So just engaging real funny conversations with women doing cool shit with the hopes that that gets attention, makes the people who don't understand and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I can't applaud that enough. I think we need more of that. So good for you to kind of take that on. And also nicely done with the name We Are a Cat Call, kind of taking the power back.
That's exactly what I had in mind. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you got it right away, man. You understand. Yeah. That's the crux of that name is like it's an aggressive thing that all women can relate to, and yeah, it's something a part of our everyday that like we flip the script and we own it.
It made sense. So I think that's awesome. And then did you kind of start these Friday night rooftop shows?
Sort of, yeah. I never in a million years would I think about doing comedy on a roof, but haha, 2020, here we are. But I've been working with the Tiny Cupboard, a really great venue out in Bushwick, Brooklyn, that has access to the roof, and that's where I've been doing my shows. But I started working with them in quarantine and doing a lot in the virtual space. And then once outdoor gatherings, or really gatherings of any kind, were allowed in New York, it made sense to just kind of like hit the ground running and do comedy however we could. And fortunate enough for literally all of us comedians, Matt and Amy at the Tiny Cupboard are wonderful, and we were able to do a ton of stuff virtually with them, and they have a roof. So, but they were definitely a trendsetter in that area in many, many ways. Like virtual comedy, they killed the game. They had multiple shows a night, and they were absolutely the first in July 2020 when things started to open back up. They knew they had that outdoor space, and they were the first to offer it to people. So I would feel comfortable saying that they are definitely the leaders in like outdoor comedy for sure. They beat some of the comedy clubs to the punch. Like they were doing it before the comedy clubs figured out to like use their roof or do it in a park or so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the coolest idea ever, honestly. Like even if there was no pandemic, I think comedy on a rooftop still kind of sounds cool.
Yeah.
But at least, the theme of this thread, doing what we can. So
you do what you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Pandemic, but to be able to do that on the roof, I think that's super cool. And I didn't know that it was in Bushwick.
Yeah. Yeah. Why? Are you in Bushwick?
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, are you really? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably right by you. It's right on 1717 Broadway as the venue. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like really close. So that's a testament to my laziness. But offline, I'm gonna connect with you, and maybe are you there this Friday?
I am every Friday at 8:30 until the rest of all time. It's actually we love that environment, and I love that environment and that roof so much that I might keep that show forever as long as I can. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. That sounds like a blast. Well, yeah, I'm gonna shoot you a message offline because maybe I'll come this Friday since I don't have anything else.
You're
Well,
like, since it's like in my building.
yeah, exactly.
Next door to it. I just realized. Yeah.
Oh man, that's embarrassing on my end. Better late than never though.
All good.
Do you so you do all these things that are related with comedy, but not just necessarily comedy. Do you kind of view yourself as any sort of like entrepreneur at all, or is it mostly you're a hustler, you're hungry, you want to make things happen?
Yeah, I definitely do have an entrepreneurial spirit too. I mean, I think as a if you sign up to be an artist or a creative and kind of pursue your dream, inherently you're also an entrepreneur, because in order to make it sustain itself and to make a living off of it and build a career around it, it's running a business, and the business is you and what it is you produce and create. So with that comes like the risks associated with entrepreneurship and the rising and the falling that comes with building yourself up, because it's deciding to become a comedian, especially something as like stand up. You do start at square one. You do it with like building up your art, figuring out what works for you, what doesn't, finding your comedic voice, finding your path, figuring out how you want to build yourself across the medium. And yeah, I do see myself as like definitely a comedian first off, but I do want to like just have a career in the entertainment industry and be equal parts like a public presence, as an actress, host, comedian, and a bunch of different hats there, but also hopefully eventually like be trusted enough and have enough credibility that I can like make choices for other like artists, especially women artists and female artists too. So like on the behind the scenes too, like, try to have a say in how things are produced and run and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, so far so good. It looks like you're kind of hitting all those things so far, and just kind of extrapolate that a little bit, and yeah, you'll be there. You're well on the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if I can mention this, but and I can obviously edit this out. You just kind of did a movie this past week.
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, we could definitely talk about it. Yeah.
Is that kind of the first movie that you've done, or
Definitely the first like full length movie. I've done some short films and I've done like web series and sketches and stuff. But yeah, it's called The Rest of Your Life. It's written by another stand-up comedian, Michael Pomeroy. He's great. We have a great production company, 4x3, based out in Ohio. That's been putting it together, and those guys are super talented and hardworking. But yeah, it was baby's first full-length film. It was a real shoot. It's multiple days, long days, a whole narrative and everything. And I'm, the lead female role. I won't give away too much about the story, but it's great. It's a really, really cool project to be a part of.
can you answer if you have a is it a comedy? Like, do you have a comedic role?
Yeah, it's a dramedy.
Oh,
It's a dramedy. Yeah, I think that's how we're marketing it too. Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely funny, and there's a lot of funny moments and snarky moments too, because Michael's a comedian, so obviously that kind of naturally came out in the script. But I don't know if it's there's an entire narrative to it. There's a lot of layers to it. Yeah.
nice. Well, I like me a dramedy, so I'm excited to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're mentioning that you kind of the he's the writer, Michael.
Yeah, yeah, he's a writer and creator of the film and director actually too. Yeah.
Nice. So you said that he's a bit of a comedian, and seeing like the lineups that you have for these Friday night outdoor shows, like you're kind of running with what feels like some heavy hitters in the New York scene that are kind of like the next generation of kind of like feel like will be big names in the entertainment industry in general, not just comedy.
Mhm.
Just kind of wondering, like, let's say pre-COVID times, like, what did it look like on like a typical night for you doing comedy and doing sets?
I was just always on stage all the time. I mean, my routine starting in the afternoon onward, I would hit like multiple open mics. which is a huge blessing for being a New York City comedian, is that there's literally comedy everywhere. And it was really, really easy to get yourself up 4 or 5 times in an afternoon. And then using the open mics to work stuff out and warm up, and then usually going to anywhere between 1 to 4 spots a night in New York and the tri-state area. And yeah, just, getting on stage every single day was a given, no matter the size of the show, the kind of show, the lineup, or whatever. Like, that was just a part of my daily routine. And it's getting there now. It's getting there as like more stuff pops back up. But I do miss that. I miss, like, it's interesting as a comedian because it's like there's 24 hours in a day. You're awake for like, I don't know, 15 of them or something, and sometimes only a cumulative 15 minutes of your day matters. Like, that's like the 15 minutes of your day that you look forward to are those 3 5-minute spots at night. So that's a math lesson for everyone at home who just needs some basic arithmetic. I'm a teacher also.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that interview where I was one with the bomb was, they hit me with a math question right up front. She's like, yeah, I'm just gonna end it
No.
right now.
Well, you're creative too. So it's like, I don't want number. I can't. Yeah.
Where were
No.
you when I needed you?
I know. You should have just Skyped me in. You should have squad casted me in. I would have been there.
For the second round one.
You're for the second interview. I'll be there to help you work through the math, and I'll pump you with some jokes. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll
Yeah.
split the money with you. What is you're talking about doing like some open mic nights, and I imagine, yeah, like kind of on any level as a comedian, that's just got to be such a nice like saving grace to be able to do whatever there 5, 10, however many open mics there are in the city on any given night. Let's say
Yeah.
pre-COVID times. What's like a rite of passage for every open micer?
Oh, there's so many. You get used to waiting a really long time. I mean, everybody in New York City either is a comedian or thinks they can be a comedian. And the open mics are available and accessible to everybody as long as you sign up on time or you pay. Some of them are like, you have to pay for your slot too. So I think a rite of passage is getting used to like getting there late and you're number 34 on the list and you just have to kind of like wait through it. You see some weird shit for sure too. Some weird stuff that you're like, this isn't stand up and I don't know what I'd call it. And I also hope I never see it ever again. Yeah. And I think it's the whole pay to play thing definitely sucks, especially for something like an open mic. I think it's there to kind of regulate and to weed out people who aren't serious. But it's a time commitment too, it's rehearsal. Because like you could practice in front of your mirror and your wall as much as possible, but until you're in front of like a room of like warm-blooded human beings and like a crowd of people, you're not going to really know how it feels or if it works or not. So it's a lot of time, and you try to get strategic about it and hitting as many as you can or only hitting the free ones and stuff. But sometimes it can feel like as if, especially before you start getting booked, it can feel like it's all for naught. Not really, where you just start getting frustrated because you're like, oh, I only hit 2 open mics, but it took me 3.5 hours. And it's like, that's kind of it, or you went to one and it was capped already. Like you just, you gotta, how bad do you want it? You gotta keep going.
Yeah, there's some that have like the wait list is like 34 people, or like the numbers you have to wait like that long. Damn.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah. Then there's others that are the opposite and they're like only 10 slots. And then that's kind of annoying too, because obviously, as you can imagine, like that fills up very quickly as well. Some of them are multidisciplinary. So then like you're going right after a musician. So you have to wait for them to take their shit down and it's, it's wild, or you get cut or the mic gets canceled or so like I said, they're not like shows. So there's a little less of a polish there and a little less of like a guaranteed return. But you have to just at least put yourself out there and try and get what you can out of it, I guess. It sucks. Mics are not fun, but they're like a necessary evil for sure.
Yeah, I've heard stories of comedians having to like follow full bands.
It's so weird.
That seems like such a nightmare. Like, I mean, like maybe if the band completely sucks, it wouldn't be as bad. But just following up any sort of like live, loud sound like that with like just a voice, that's
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's really, really hard. Or yeah, following a band is hard. I think opening a band makes more sense. Opening for a band. Sometimes like the multidisciplinary shows can be really fun, but again, like if it's not a band, I've been sandwiched in between like interpretive dance and a weird dramatic monologue, and then you're just there like I'm gonna joke about my vagina, so you're like, how do I wean them off of or like rev them up from interpretive dance but wind them down for a dramatic monologue, and it's tricky. It's tricky because you got to meet the room like right where it is.
Yeah, I imagine that's a delicate tightrope to walk.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
um, I'll just ask this, but how close is the Brittany Brave off stage to the one that's on stage?
That's a good question. I think what you see is what you get. I think, for better or for worse. I'm kind of always on as a person, even when I'm off stage. And anything that I bring to the stage has happened to me and is true. So I think so. But I think as a comedian, and I'm early in my journey, especially in comparison to the legends, obviously, and like the pros and stuff. Like, I think a big thing that you try to like the gap you try to bridge is like the Brittany who you are off stage. You try to bring as much of that authentically as you can on stage, because at least as a comedian, that's where you really thrive and when you really find your voice and hit a groove. So you try to pay attention to like what truly are you about day to day and what makes your friends laugh day to day, and like, okay, like you want to capture that organic you and like bring that on stage because that's how you connect with people. But yeah, I think what you see is what you get for the most part. I don't think anybody's too surprised by my material when they hear it. They're like, yeah, that adds up, that would happen to her. So yeah.
Got it. I One of my favorite comedians is Bill Burr, and I think he said
Yeah.
something similar to kind of like what you were saying, bridging the gap of who you are on stage and off stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, I don't even know if that could be like accelerated. Like, I think that's just through years and years of like growing in tandem as a comedian and as a human being. Like, at some point, and you just keep doing it. Hopefully, you keep doing both. Hopefully, you keep growing as a human emotionally and I guess physically. I haven't. I stopped at like 410. That's as far as I'm growing physically, but 410 32B. It's not, we're not growing any farther than that. But yeah, emotionally and mentally you grow. And then you keep doing stand up and you take all the stage time you get, and then you grow as a comedian. And then I do think like it intersects at some point where also you're so used to getting on stage that like it's just you're you off stage, you're you on stage. It's just one and the same.
Yeah, yeah, it feels like kind of an ever evolving thing, or at least in the very kind of beginning stages where it's just you're growing. Sometimes maybe not physically anymore, but let's like you said, hopefully emotionally there's still growth, and yeah,
Mhm.
kind of bridging that gap.
Yeah.
What are some lessons that being a comedian has taught you?
You can't cheat yourself. Honesty is the best policy for sure. And you at the end of the day, like you have to be happy with the work you're doing. I think as a comedian, as an artist, once you're creating anything for public consumption, you can't control it. You can't control how it's received. You can control how you market it and package it and present it and everything like that, but there's always going to be some element that you don't know how it's going to be received, if it's going to be liked or disliked or hated or it's going to kill or whatever the case is. And like separating yourself from your art and knowing that at the end of the day, as long as you're happy and you're staying true to the things that you are and what you're making, that's all that really matters, because you are putting yourself in an industry and in a circumstance where like you're at the mercy of other people's opinions. So at the end of the day, you have to be okay with you and know like, I like the art I'm making, I believe in this material, I believe in myself. And that's not always easy. But yeah, I mean, choosing a career as a comedian has just been like an endless journey of self-discovery and like being honest about and observing the world and you learn to pay attention to things you normally wouldn't. So yeah, it's a cool job to have for sure.
Well, I'm excited to see what you continue to do on the journey. I mean, so far so good. It's been entertaining. I've enjoyed it. I've watched like some of
Thank you.
your YouTube stuff and some reels and whatnot. So yeah, keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And this was like the last question that I'll try not to be so precious about, but um,
Oh,
again, after doing some reading, I think you
mhm.
said something that like laughter was your first love, and
Yeah.
just
Oh God, did I really say that? Ugh. Ugh.
they could have misinterpreted you or something. I don't know.
No, I probably did. I was probably PMSing. Oh God.
Uh,
That's terrible, Brittany. Yeah, go. I probably said it. I own it. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, what is it about? Like, what does it do for you to make other people laugh?
Like, what do I get from that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's equal, I think. Um, it feels good to make other people feel good. I think there is an element of like, I think good comedians, there is an element of like caretaking and like humanity in it, like that is rewarding to bring joy to people, especially strangers, and make their day a little bit easier or help them make sense of something. Like it's just pretty pure. It's great. And then obviously, like any creative craft, it is slightly narcissistic. And that it also feels good to have your experiences and your material and your presence validated through laughter. And, I hope the audience feels seen in my material and it makes them feel a little less alone. But also, like when they do react and they respond well to my material, by all means, I feel seen too, like as a comedian and as a human as well. So I think that's a healthy relationship between a comic and an audience. It's like when both parties are like, cool, I feel seen and actualized and understood. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's powerful having the audience feel as if they've been seen and yeah, just making them feel a little less alone, even if it's for like whatever, 10, 15 seconds. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
huge. I also kind of feel like making people laugh is a bit of like a superpower. Like if somebody ever makes me laugh, just immediately it's like, okay, homies, we're going to get along.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to like make somebody seem or make somebody or something seem less intimidating and take the power into it and like or take power away from certain things. Like, I know that's how a lot of people cope. That's how I coped with like an abusive relationship. It's how people cope with breakup, sexual assault, like anything that they bring on stage, grief or whatever. Like it kind of shifts the power away from like that onto you. And yeah, laughter. Yeah, because laughter is like one big resounding, yeah, me too. Like it's one big, like, that's everyone being like, I agree, I'm with you, I understand you, I see you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask that earlier. I just didn't know if it was going to be like too heavy or whatever. But yeah, just how comedy can kind of help you cope through trauma and whatnot. And, even in my own life, like with my parents' divorce and whatnot, it hurt in the moment. But now it's like, it's all good. Let's have a laugh. It's no issue anymore. So comedy can be healing as well.
Absolutely, for sure.
And as promised, I'll finally bring it back to the good old dating life or something like
Good old
that.
dating life. Yeah, yeah. What about,
Well, I was just gonna say, like, let's say you're on a dating app or on a date in real life. I know that you mentioned something about Pinot Grigio, but what's the way to Brittany Brave's heart?
a lot of money, a big penis, a lot of Pinot Grigio. Gotta be a feminist. Gotta laugh at my jokes. Gotta get along with my mom and trim your goddamn fingernails. That's it. That's it. Oh, and be emotionally available. But I've learned to live without that last element. So I'm okay.
Is that so much to ask?
Is that so much to ask? That's a pretty manageable list. I know a lot more women that are higher maintenance than me. I'm saying.
I think that sounds pretty reasonable. If I come across anybody, I'll keep my ears and eyes open. I'll be sure to run them by you first, but I'm not bad at
Please,
playing matchmaker, so I'll keep you in the loop.
please just look at their fingernails and try and see if you can peek inside their pants really quickly and then ask them if they like wine, and that's enough. Then just after those three, just send them my way and I'll do the rest of the work shopping. It's fine.
Cool, done and done. I'll be sure to keep all that in mind.
Amazing.
And I was just kind of looking through some of your your Insta videos and whatnot, and I'm just kind of wondering, what role does working out play in your life?
Oh yeah, I'm super into fitness. I've always been like a pretty active person. I used to be a dancer and stuff. It's for now, like as a comedian, like it's a huge meditative thing for me. I think it's like a way to clear my head. And it's kind of a hectic schedule, so staying healthy and in shape is really important too. But for me, yeah, it's been really mentally rewarding as a comedian and a human being. Like I think getting out of your body helps you get out of your head.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I mean, I can't stress the importance of getting some sort of like fitness or cardio or just breaking a sweat, especially this year. I mean, it's just so important.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know who you're poking fun of at first, but it's cool to know that you actually work out and that's part of like your daily or routine or like lifestyle routine.
Yeah, I do. No, I definitely do. I'm What I was more so poking fun at is how everyone on the internet, 9 times out of 10, you'll run into somebody who has a fitness or a snack blog. Also, usually has zero authority to be like crafting workouts or sharing anything at all. But they're like, here's what you should do. And you're like, you're not even like certified or whatever. Or like, yeah, just like the self-important. I was definitely poking fun at like the self-importance of social media that everyone feels, that they're like, they just think it's like really important that they share their morning workout or their morning oatmeal. And it's like, nobody cares. Nobody asked for it. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Also, you work out. Congratulations. A lot of people do. You can work out and not put it on social media and still reap the benefits of it. But on that note, I do work out, and I would like for everyone to publicly know that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I have similar thoughts with you on these people that are just constantly posting their workouts and whatnot and like claiming to have authority on how to eat or how to work out and all this stuff. It's just, it's like a parody of themselves. It's just so outrageous.
It's just like people forget that they always, always, always have the option to just shut the fuck up. Like, just like that's always on the table. Just don't. Like, it's always on the table to just not, Yeah. And this is coming from someone whose career is around not shutting the fuck up. But like, I get it. I'm a walking contradiction with this. So
I think that's my second favorite thing from this podcast so far is that people always have the option to shut the fuck up. I mean, that's probably a healthy option as well,
Yes, embrace the bomb, be the bomb, and also remember you can shut the fuck up at any given moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I might actually start peddling that idea as well. I think that's genius.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure I'm mindful of your time, but just out of curiosity, what embarrasses you or makes you feel self-conscious?
Not a lot, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing, I think. It takes a lot to really embarrass me. I think things that embarrass me are like, if I like truly like if something that I'm doing or that I'm a part of is like sloppy work will embarrass me, or if like I'm tied to something with somebody and it doesn't go, like stuff like that embarrasses me. Like if I didn't live up to expectations or I turned something in that was sloppy or like a mistake or like things like that. But like in day-to-day stuff, like no. Yeah. I think like, yeah, like and like also like a lot of people are socially cringy and don't have any social responsibility. And that stuff, like I feel embarrassed for them. Yeah.
Perfect. I was wondering if you were gonna say not a whole lot, which embarrasses you.
No, me personally, nah. No.
But I do like what you said about, like having standards, and forgive me for using the term professionalism, but if your name is going to be attached to something, you don't want to turn in like some turd or some piece of shit. You want to have a little bit of pride in what you're doing. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I decided why I do a lot of things on my own. Like I would prefer to be the only producer on my show. I would prefer to yeah, for sure. Like, just because it's like, at least then like when I win, it's my win. And when something goes wrong, I own it. And it's like, I just don't want to like tether myself to other people. So.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Most people don't want to take that kind of responsibility on themselves.
Yeah. It's also probably why I'm single. I don't want to be responsible for somebody else's bullshit or tether myself to somebody else who can bring me down and make me look sloppy. Trim those fingernails, man. Please. No.
So good. So good. Well, just to kind of close things out, I know it's tough to predict what the fuck is going to happen, But, in the next, let's say 6 months to a year, what do you kind of have going on? What are you looking forward to doing?
It's definitely a day-to-day thing. I am hoping that the normalcy and the normal pace of comedy can come back as soon as possible. So I think it's going to be splitting my time between making it work with what it is that I can. And then once everything's back to normal, hitting the ground running again. But just growing as a comedian. I want to finish up my hour in the next year. A lot of the things I had slated for 2020, like tour dates and stuff, I'd love to get back on the books for 2021 and just bigger and better. And just it's a day at a time. Just keep trying to make the right moves and working hard and seeing what happens.
Very much with you on the one day at a time thing right now. It's so crazy, but a Brittany Brave 1 hour special. What? Let's go.
Woo! Hopefully I want to finish it by top of next year. I at least want to have the rough draft of the hour and then spend a good chunk of next year perfecting it and tightening it, and then just see where we're at by the end of next year in terms of I don't know, putting it out there or throwing it away. We'll see. TBD. Who knows? It could go either way.
Yeah, who knows? It's anybody's guess with this year. What an insane time. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this with me. I was laughing the entire time. It's so nice to chat with you, get to know you, and I'm cheering you on forever and always.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm going to be in touch about one of these Friday shows. I'd love to come and hang out.
Amazing. The show is basically in your living room, so you have to be there.
LOL. Well, I'll be in touch. I'll see you soon, and thanks again. Later.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Gifted Conversations. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, tell a friend, or leave a review. Or if you hated it, feel free to tell me to fuck off or leave a negative comment. Anything is welcome. Appreciate the support, and I'm sending you positive thoughts and energy.